His work involved traveling. Our family lived in several cities during my childhood. Mother held an open hand towards the needy. Father was also kindly disposed, but his respect for law and order extended to the budget. One fortnight, mother spent in feeding the poor more than the father's monthly income. All I ask, please, father said, is that you keep your charities within a reasonable limit. Even a gentle rebuke from her husband was grievous to mother. Not hinting to the children at any disagreement, she ordered a hackney carriage. Goodbye. I'm going away to my mother's home. Ancient ultimatum. We broke into astounded lamentations. Our maternal uncle arrived opportunely. He whispered to father some sage counsel garnered, no doubt, from the ages. After father had made a few consolatory remarks, mother happily dismissed the cab. Thus ended the only trouble I ever noticed between my parents. But I recall a characteristic discussion. Please give me 10 rupees for a hapless woman who has just arrived at the house. Mother's smile had its own persuasion. Why 10 rupees? One is enough, father added, a justification. When my father and grandparents died suddenly, I had my first experience of poverty. My only breakfast before walking miles to my school was a small banana. Later at the university, I was in such need that I applied to the wealthy judge for aid of 1 rupee per month. He declined, remarking that even a rupee is important. How bitterly you recall the denial of that rupee. Mother's heart had an instant logic. Do you want this woman also to remember painfully your refusal of 10 rupees, which she needed urgently? You win. With the immemorial gesture of vanquished husband, he opened his wallet. Here is a 10 rupee note. Give it to her with my goodwill. Father tended first to say no to any new proposal. His attitude towards the stranger, who so readily had won mother's sympathy, was an example of his customary caution. An aversion to instant acceptance is really only honoring the principle of due reflection. I always found Father reasonable and evenly balanced in his judgments. If I could bluster off my numerous requests with one or two good arguments, he would invariably put within my reach the coveted goal, whether a vacation trip or a new motorcycle. Father was a strict disciplinarian to his children in their early years, but his attitude towards himself was truly Spartan. He never visited the theater, for instance, but sought his recreation in various spiritual practices and in reading the Bhagavad Gita. Shunning all luxuries, he would cling to one old pair of shoes until they were useless. His sons brought automobiles after they came into popular use, but father was content with the trolley car for his daily ride to the office. Father was not interested in the accumulation of money for the sake of power. On one occasion, after he had organized the Calcutta Urban Bank, he refused to benefit himself by holding any of its shares. He had simply wished to perform a civic duty in his spare time. Several years after father had retired on a pension, an accountant from the England came to India to examine the books of Bengal Nagpur Railway. The amazed investigator discovered that father had never applied for overdue bonuses. He did the work of three men, the accountant told the company. He had rupees 1,25,000, that is 41,250, owing to him as back compensation. The treasurer sent father a check for that account. My parent thought so little about the matter that he forgot to mention it to the family. Much later, he was questioned by my youngest brother, Vishnu, who had noticed the large deposit on a bank statement. Why be elated by material profit? Father replied. The one who pursues a goal of even mindedness is neither jubilant with gain nor depressed by loss. He knows that man arrives penniless in this world and departs without a single rupee. Early in their married life, my parents became disciples of a great master, Lahari Mahashaya of Banaras. This association strengthened father's naturally ascetical temperament. Mother once made a remarkable admission to my eldest sister Roma. Your father and I sleep together as man and wife only once a year for the purpose of having children. Father met Lahari Mahashaya through Abhinash Babu, an employee of a branch line of Bengal Nagpur Railway in Gorakhpur. Abhinash Babu instructed my young ears with the engrossing tales of many Indian saints. He invariably concluded with a tribute to the superior glories of his own Guru. Did you ever hear the extraordinary circumstances under which your father became a disciple of Lahari Mahashaya? It was on a lazy summer afternoon, as Abhinash and I sat together in the compound of my home, that he put his intriguing question. I shook my head with a smile of anticipation. Years ago, before you were born, I asked my superior officer, your father, to give me a week's leave for my office duties in order to visit my guru in Banaras. Your father ridiculed my plan. Are you going to become a religious fanatic? He inquired. Concentrate on your office work if you want to forge ahead. Sadly, walking home along a woodland path that day, I met your father in a palanquin. He dismissed his servants and conveyance and fell into step beside me. Seeking to console me, he pointed out the advantages of striving for worldly success, but I heard him listlessly. My heart was repeating, Lahari Mahashaya, I cannot live without seeing you. Our path took us to the edge of the tranquil field, where the rays of the late afternoon sun were crowing the tall ripple of the wild grass. We paused in admiration. There in the field, only a few yards from us, the form of my great guru suddenly appeared. Bhagavati, you are too hard on your employee. His voice was resonant in our astounded ears. He vanished as mysteriously as he had come. On my knees, I was exclaiming, Lahari Mahashaya, Lahari Mahashaya. For a few moments, your father was motionless with stupefaction. Abhinash, not only do I give you leave, but I give myself leave to start for Banaras tomorrow. I must know this great Lahari Mahashaya who is able to materialize himself at will. In order to intercede for you, I will take my wife and ask this master to initiate us in his spiritual path. Will you guide us to him? Of course, joy filled me at the miraculous answer to my prayer and the quick favorable turn of events. The next evening, your parents and I entrained for Banaras. Reaching there on the following day, we took a horse car for some distance, then had to walk through the narrow lanes to my guru's secluded home. Entering his little parlour, we bowed before the master, enlocked in his habitual lotus posture. He blinked his piercing eyes and levelled them on your father. Bhagavati, you are too hard on your employee. His words were the same as those he had used 2 days before in the grassy field. He added, I am glad that you have permitted Abhinash to visit me and that you and your wife have accompanied him. To their joy, he initiated your parents in the spiritual practice of Kriya Yoga. Your father and I, as brother disciples, have been close friends since the memorable day of the vision. Lahari Mahashaya took a definite interest in your own birth. Your life shall surely be linked with his own. The Master's blessings never fails. Lahari Mahashaya left this world shortly after I had entered it. His picture in an ornate frame always graced our family altar in the various cities to which father was transferred by his office. Many a morning and evening found mother and me meditating before an improvised shrine offering flowers dipped a fragrant sandalwood paste. With frankincense and myrrh, as well as our united devotions, we honored the divinity that had found full expression in Lahari Mahashaya. His picture had a surpassing influence over my life. As I grew, the thought of the Master grew with me. In meditation, I would often see his photographic image emerge from its small frame and taking a living form sit before me. When I attempted to touch the feet of his luminous body, it would change and again become the picture. As childhood slipped into boyhood, I found Lahari Mahashaya transformed in my mind from a little image cribbed in a frame to a living, enlightening presence. I frequently prayed to him in moments of trial or confusion, finding within me his solacing direction. At first, I grieved because he was no longer physically living. As I began to discover his secret omnipresence, I lamented no more. He had often written to those of his disciples who were over anxious to see him, "Why come to view my flesh and bones, when I'm ever within the range of your kutastha, spiritual sight?" At about the age of 8, I was blessed with a wonderful healing through the photograph of Lahari Mahashaya. This experience gave intensification to my love. While at our family estate in Ichhapur, Bengal, I was stricken with the Asiatic cholera. My life was despaired of. The doctors could do nothing. At my beside, mother frantically motioned me to look at Lahari Mahashaya's picture on the wall above my head. Bow to him mentally. She knew I was too feeble even to lift my hands in salutation. If you really show your devotion and inwardly kneel before him, your life will be spared. I gazed at his photograph and saw there is a blinding light enveloping my body and the entire room. My nausea and other uncontrollable symptoms disappeared. I was well. At once I felt strong enough to bend over and touch mother's feet in appreciation of her immeasurable faith in her guru. Mother passed her head repeatedly against the little picture. O omnipresent Master, I thank thee that the light has healed my son. I realized that she too had witnessed the luminous blaze through which I had instantly recovered from a usual fatal disease.